Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session where you'll learn about something new to add to your toolbox as a developer. Last Sunday we had a session with Bolu, and he spoke about design systems, and we learned tons of new stuff. The meeting was recorded, and it's actually here on YouTube. Today, three people will be speaking on a really nice topic, and after that, we would have a Kahoot session very similar to the one we had last time. So, Temitope, are you ready?
Yep.
All right, please take the floor.
Okay, cool. Hi guys. Let me share my screen. Cool. I will share these slides on JavaScripters so that you can jump ahead at any time during the session or just have a look after the session. Cool. So code generation with Mustache templates is the topic, and what is the point? Sorry, then what's this? Can you see my screen in a reasonable size?
Yes.
It's not too small.
No, it's not so small.
Okay, cool. So there are many situations where, as a developer, you want to generate some code on the fly for many numerous reasons. For example, when I was at my last company, actually one of my former companies, Uplands, I was creating a component library, and I created a code playground where you could edit some things in the UI, like select some checkboxes, and we will generate the code for you. So basically what I was doing was I created a component library, and I want to show you the code you would use to, use that component library. Many component libraries have something like this. Vuetify, for example, if you go to Vuetify's website, you can select some configuration on the UI, and it will show you the code you would need to render that configuration. So there are many situations like that where you want to generate code. So how do you usually approach it? Well, one common approach is this picture I have here on the right, and that is put the code in some string templates, and use some, put some configuration in there like this with JavaScript. This is why this is the entire reason the string templating thingy was introduced into JavaScript, because it makes it easier for you to do things like this. The problem with this is that it's messy, as you can see. And when I say it's messy, you will notice that the indentation here has to be exactly how I want it to be in the UI. The indentation in the string templates has to be exactly how I want it to be in the UI. But if I get it wrong, there's no easy way for me to see that. It's a string after all, and it will have string formatting, and I will not know that I have done something wrong. So that's the entire reason for our talk today. How do we generate code in a more efficient, more reusable manner? Enter Mustache. You can check out their website, mustache.github.io. Mustache is a template syntax. And if you don't know what its template syntax is, you actually have seen many of them. JSX is a template syntax that you use to create template components in React. There's this very popular one. I can't remember the name right now, but the name is in this slide. It's at the end. That is used in Node.js. Is used in several Node.js full stack libraries to render UIs by providing some variables from your controller or whatever. Blade is a template syntax. Laravel Blade, if you've worked with Laravel, Blade is what Laravel uses. So how does Mustache works? Mustache works by expanding properties. You define a template like this. You define a template. Let's say you define this template. Notice the double braces, which is where the name Mustache comes from. You define a template like this, and then you pass in an object. So let's say this is the object you pass in, foo, and the value of the object is the value of the foo property in the object is hello, and you pass it into the template. Then this will render hello world because it replaces foo with the property of the object. So that's how it is. But notice one thing here: we said Mustache is a logicless template syntax. So we'll come back to that. Most templates have logic. They allow you to do for loops. Most templates allow you. So in JSX, for example, you can write JavaScript. So JSX is it's just syntax. It's JavaScript. In Laravel Blade, you have at, if, at, for each. Many templates are like that. They allow you to do loops and stuff. Mustache is not like that. Mustache is logicless. So like I said, there are many situations where you will need to do some code generation, and we will consider some of them during this session, and we will actually write some code and generate some interesting use cases. For example, you can generate a CSV file from structured data. We will do that during this call. I know you already know how to generate CSV file with JavaScript or with PHP, but it's much more efficient if we do it this way. We can generate config files. So if you have run npm init before, you know npm init will ask you for some properties, and then you use those properties that you provide to npm init. Npm uses that to generate a package.json file. We will do that as well. We will simulate npm init. We will write our own npm init during this call. There are also many other situations. These ones we will not touch during the call. You can generate a Docker config. You can generate a CI config. Recently at work, I had to generate TypeScript files from OpenAPI specs. So if you have an API spec, you can use that to generate a TypeScript file, and your TypeScript file will contain all of the types defined by the OpenAPI specs. You can even take it further, which is what we did, which is all of the functions that makes the API calls are generated with, our Mustache code generator. With our Mustache templates, we were able to generate all of our API requests, which means you don't even need to worry about writing API requests at all. We've generated everything, and you just assume it works and just go inside your component and call this function that makes this request. That's it. There's this very popular tool, JSON to Dart converter, which I used when I was writing Flutter. And yeah, this is a very good use case. For example, let me show you the JSON to Dart converter. JSON to Dart, this is the JSON to Dart converter. And if I paste any JSON here, let me bring one. I paste any JSON here and whatever, and I generate this, it gives me a Dart class. This is another very interesting use case of using Mustache templates and just code generation in general. So those are cases where code generation can be useful. But first, let's get familiar with the syntax, with Mustache syntax. Here's a basic example, and I will go to Replit now. Replit. Yeah, I'll go to Replit, and we will work with this example. So if you look at this Mustache template, this is what I just said. This is how I just described that you can define a Mustache template. You have a string, and I know I said the point of this entire talk is that we don't want to define this in strings, and we will not do that. This is just a basic example to describe how Mustache templating works. So you define your variables that you want to pass in. You define them in braces like this. So this template is assuming you are going to pass a name, or and slash or an age, a company. These are comments. So anything that starts with a bank is a comment. An age, a company as well, but with 3 braces, and we will see why. Company, with an ampersand, we will see what the ampersand does. And it's also possible to change the delimiter. I've already shown comments. This is what comments look like. You can also change the delimiters. So this is the default delimiter, braces. You can change the delimiters to this less than percentage. You can change the delimiters to this. I've seen this delimiter used in, I think it was Vue. And that's how I know the index of HTML in Vue is using something similar to Mustache templating to insert your JavaScript files. And yeah, so the reason we changed this delimiter, let's just go to Replit and see some code. So this is the basic string I just showed in the slides. And I am passing this object. I wrote an helper function, generate output, and this is the helper function. All it does is just call mustache.render. So here we are using Mustache.js, but Mustache has implementations in many languages: JavaScript, Java, Python, you name it. It most likely has an implementation because it's quite popular. So whatever language you want to use, you can find the implementation. But here we are using Mustache.js. So so I wrote this helper function that just calls mustache.render. It takes the template, which is, the templates, and the data, which is the data. So in the data, I am passing a name, an age, and a company. If you notice from here, we are requesting a name, an age, and a company as well. Those are the only variables we are requesting. When I run this, this is the output. So let's look at the template and compare it to the output. The template defines the output. So you see we have a star and a name. So star Chris, star and the age, 24, company. Now, tags are escaped by default. So if you see the company here, we have a bold tag and some text inside it. It renders that here this way. Unless you use 3 braces, and that's why we have the 3 braces here. So the 3 braces will allow you to ignore the escaped tags. So if you know you have some string that probably has some HTML entity content, then you want to use 3 braces like this, or this ampersand. Ampersand works the same way as 3 braces, which is don't escape the tags. If you want to show the braces like below, then you want to change the delimiters like this. So if I want to change the I can change the delimiters to literally anything else, whatever it is that you want. For example, let's say I change the delimiters to, I cannot use equal to because yeah, let's say I change the delimiters to this brace, to this square bracket. Sorry, square brackets. Yeah, sorry. So I can change the delimiters to this. And basically what this means is if I want to render company like here, I have to put this brackets like this. And if I run this, we should see the company name on the right. Yep, which is, this is the company name. So if I put 3 square brackets, I'm not sure this is going to work actually. Yep. It doesn't. So I guess we need to change the delimiters for three square brackets as well. So the point is you can change the delimiters from braces, but braces are perfect because they have a low likelihood of interfering with anything else that you have in your code. So that's just the basic syntax. Is that the key takeaway from here is that braces is how you render a variable, and 3 braces will unescape your variables. That's the entire takeaway from here. Okay. Now, let's look at some more advanced syntax and applications of what we've just seen. With that basic syntax, we can actually do a lot of things, but let's look at a few more things. But remember, we said Mustache is logicless, which means no if else's, no for loops, which means you can't have bugs in your Mustache template. If you are saying your Mustache template has a bug, unless you've written 3 braces instead of 2, but doesn't matter, it's always going to work. Your Mustache template is always going to work. Now, if you are not seeing the data you're expecting to see, then your bug is wherever your logic is being handled. So if you are thinking very hard, how am I supposed to solve this problem? How can I render a list 10 times? How can I remove a comma from the end of a trailing list? All of that is handled wherever your logic is being handled. That is not the responsibility of your Mustache template. Let's look at the array to CSV example we started with. So we've seen that you can render a single property with this syntax. Now you can also define a section. Think of a section as a group, more or less, that has an opening tag and a closing tag. So you can define a section like this: hashtag property, and close the property. The property is just a variable name. So instead of saying double braces with headers, I can say double braces with hashtag headers and then close the headers. So this is expecting that I'm passing a headers variable. If that headers variable is passed, then this group will be rendered 1 or more times. Now, what happens, how many times this is rendered depends on the type of property that headers is. If headers is false or null or undefined, or you don't pass headers at all, then this will not be rendered at all. If you pass a list into headers, I think there's something wrong with this code. Okay, we will see that when we'll go and play with the code itself. So if you pass a list into headers, then headers will be rendered the number of times of the number of items in the list. So let's see how to convert an array to a CSV file, the code that we are seeing in the UI here. You can make reference to these slides later, and I included the link to the GitHub repository that contains all of the code in these slides at the end of the slide. So if you have this slide, you have the GitHub repository at the end. So don't worry too much about that. We will go and write the code for this. So first, let's see how to have a CSV. After all, the entire point of what we're talking about here is that we don't want to define our templates as strings. So I'm going to create a mustache file. Let's call it csv.mustache and paste the template inside. Sorry about the formatting. Sorry, I'm using Replit. Replit does not have formatting for mustache files. My VS Code does. So if you're using VS Code, you'll probably see some nice formatting for this. So like I said, I am putting a header section, and this is assuming I'm going to pass a headers variable. If I don't pass the headers, it simply will not be rendered at all. I should have showed that earlier, but I will here. So if I don't pass headers, then this will not be rendered at all. So if you put a variable, if you come in here and you say variable, you are safe. Even if you say, if you come in and say variable dot property, whatever, you are still safe if variable does not exist. Remember, no logic means no bugs. So your mustache template is still fine. It just means if variable does not exist, it will not be rendered. That's it. So now, like I said, this is defining a section. The dot here means current item, just like your path. If you are in a CLI, dot means the current item inside the list. So if headers is a list, then we will render the current item. If headers is a single item, then we will render the current item as headers. So I'm saying if headers is an empty list, or if headers is false or undefined meaning it was not passed, if headers is a list that contains 1, 2, 3, or if headers is hello world. Let's consider each one of these cases. If headers is an empty list, this section will be skipped. If headers is false or undefined, this section will be skipped. If headers is a list that contains a couple of items, dot here means the current item. So what this means is this section will render 1. Because of the comma here, we will also have a 2 and a 3. The comma here means we have the comma here. So your output is simply whatever it is, whatever you define in your templates. That's it. So because I have a comma here, so I have a comma here, which means I will have a comma at the end, because dot, comma. So dot is 1, then comma, 2, then comma, 3, then comma. So it will render it the number of times of items that you put. The number of times of items that are in the headers. If I let's say I do this, we will run this. Okay. Let's say I do this. What this means is that the output will be something like 1, 2, 3, on new lines, because I have put this on a new line. Hope that makes sense. So, and if headers is hello world, dot here will simply mean the current item, which is hello world. So it will render hello world, comma. Cool. That's how this works, which also explains how this part works. Flat data. Flat data is assuming we will have a property in the data we will pass that is called flat data. And look at this, hashtag dot. The same way we have hashtag flat data, this starts a new section. Dot, comma means the same thing that it meant here. So the current item inside flat data. So if flat data looks like this, or flat data looks like 1, 2, 3, or flat data looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a nested array. So if flat data is empty, we already said empty lists will not render at all. So flat data is 1, 2, 3, then the list will render 3 times because there are 3 items in the array. Now, the first time it renders, let's look at for each item, for each time it renders, it's going to try to render this. Remember, hashtag starts a new section. So we'll start a new section with the current item, which is 1. Because 1 is not a list, dot here simply means 1. So we will have 1, comma, 2, comma, and 3, comma. Just the same way we had with headers. If it's a nested list, then the first item is a list. So we start a new section. Dot. Now, because it's a list, it will render the number of times of the item in the list. So we have 3 items in the list. The inner section will render 3 times. So we will have 1, 2, 3, comma. So we will have 1, 2, 3, comma. And then because this whole thing is on a new line, we also have 4, 5, 6, comma, which is what the CSV file is. Let's see some data. So let's let me bring this in. So in my index.js, I'm defining the same helper function. You don't need to worry about these top parts. Mustache is require mustache. We've seen that before. I'm using the mustache library. Resolve equals require path. I am simply importing path from Node.js. You know this. And FS requiring file system from Node.js as well. So because I want to use this to import the csv.mustache file. So I created a generate output from CSV function, the read file, I will modify this so that it goes to the right file, which is just csv.mustache, because it's not in the nested folder. And encoding is UTF-8 and generate outputs, which we'll call mustache.render this with the data, and file name equals, because I want this to create a new file. So let me call this output file name. Is simply allowing us to pass a output file name .csv, and we will write the file. But let me bring this console.log above this so that in case the file writing fails, we will still see our output. So let's start with some non-nested data. We're using the same template for all of this data: non-nested, nested, nested with headers, or with objects. And I will explain what each one of them, how each one of them translates. But let's start with the non-nested data. We're only passing flat data. If you look at our templates, yeah, let me open this to, yeah. So if you look at our templates, you see we have headers, we have flat data, and we have objects data. But here I'm only passing flat data. Like I said, the other ones I don't pass will simply not be rendered. So let me ignore all of the rest and use only this one. If I run this, this is our output: hello world full, which is 3 items here: hello world full, each one rendered on a new line. Let's see why that happens. Again, we can ignore headers, we can ignore everything else. We are coming to flat data because that's the only thing present in our object. Because this is on a new line, every item inside flat data goes on a new line. So because that's on a new line, every item inside flat data, hello world full, goes on a new line. And we are saying what? Create a new section with each item. So with hello, you create a new section. And what is inside the section? Dot, the current item. So the current item, which is still hello, will be rendered. So hello, comma, next line, world, comma, next line, full, comma. If we take a look at this second example, which is the nested data. So if you look at the difference between this and this, is that this has nested array, which means the first item inside flat data is a list. So I have a list, create a new section with that. And remember we said with sections, every item is rendered one or more times depending on what the content is. Because the content is a list, it will render the number of items in the list. Render a dot, comma, which is current item, comma. So we are going to have current item, hello, comma, world, comma, full, comma. So let me get this, and if I run that, this is the output. This is what a CSV file looks like. And if you create a spreadsheet with this, if you import this into any spreadsheet, what's it called? Engine like Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, this is what you see. And that's what CSV files are, basically. So that's the nested data. Does anyone have any questions on how the data is rendered? We've seen how to render a basic template, which is just brace with the variable name, and how to create a section with, which is hashtag variable. How to create a section, and the section will render n number of times, where n is the number of items in the list. Does anyone have any questions on this before we continue? Okay.
I think someone has a question.
Okay. What's the question?
Um, sorry,
Sir?
I have a question. I have a
Yep.
question.
Yep.
Yeah. So um, I'm literally like sorry about this though, but what exactly like is mustache like really used for? I'm trying
Okay.
to like think how I can like fit it to what I'm doing currently.
Okay. So okay, so in this example, I was explaining how to use it to generate like a CSV file. I have another example. Let me see if I can demonstrate it here in Replit. So I wanted to share my browser and my terminal. So let's say I do npm init, right? Okay, I can't do this either. So what I was going to describe is if you have run npm init before, then you see something that looks like it asks you for some inputs. It asks you for your package name, your author, your license, etc. And then it generates a package.json file for you, right? Now, the usefulness of Mustache in that scenario would be that, JSON files are very specific. Let me bring this example in. Let me bring this in, create the Mustache. So JSON files are very specific. Sorry, I made that a folder instead of a page.mustache. So JSON files are very specific on formatting. So if you are going to have a JSON file like this package.json file, if you're going to have a JSON file, your indentation has to be correct, your strings have to be quoted, etc, etc. And you can do that with JavaScript. You can do that with JavaScript strings, but it is much easier when you can simply create a file and put all of the content that can possibly be there, and then just pass some objects to that file, and that is generated. So this is a package.json file. This is what the package.json file would look like. And what you are simply saying is pass some variables. That's all. So if you want to do anything where you have to generate some code, that's what Mustache would be useful for. So for example, you want to create a Docker configuration based on some inputs. So you want to ask the user, you realize that you keep having to create Docker configurations for different things. Let's say you're working on a project where you have to create many Docker configurations based on your, I don't know, your laptop settings. All you need to do is create a Mustache file that has the ideal Docker configuration inside it, replace some parts of it with a variable, and then just get the variables you want from your system and pass it into the Mustache file, and you get your output. Another example is this that I was describing. So this is a JSON to that. I'm using this example because I don't have a JSON to TypeScript example, but the JSON to TypeScript example is a real life use case that I have used. And what that does is this: you have a JSON file, which is, API response. So from this API response, I want to create a Dart class that will represent the objects inside the API response, so that I can do, API response. Let me rename this. So that I can do API response dot total articles, API response dot articles. You can picture how this would look in TypeScript, for example. So type API response total articles int articles list, or interface, or make it an interface or whatever. Or even if it can even be a class, whatever it is that you need. So a real life use case of this, like I was saying, is creating generating code, basically. Generating a TypeScript file from an API response, generating a class from an API response, or like in my own case, which is generating a TypeScript file from an open API spec. So if you have an open API spec that looks something like this, our open API specs will typically be YAML files that specify the properties. So you have properties that look like name, and then it says type is object, that, and properties is something like uh let's say this is user, and properties is something like name, string, uh age, int, etc. So based on this open API spec, I want to create a TypeScript file automatically. So from this open API spec, you can go inside your JavaScript code and start creating the TypeScript files manually. Type user equals name, string, age, int. And you can do this for all of your endpoints, which is not ideal. Or you can use a tool like Open API to TypeScript. I think there's a Open API TypeScript. So there's a tool like this, Open API TypeScript. And this Open API TypeScript will take an Open API spec like this and convert it to TypeScript like this. And this tool already does that. But I'm saying behind the scenes, I don't know what this tool uses actually, but behind the scenes, this tool could use something like a Mustache template to define what the TypeScript file is going to look like. Now, in my case, for example, what we needed was more than just converting this Open API spec to TypeScript. What we needed was to convert this Open API spec to a TypeScript file, yes, but we also want to have functions that make API requests. So you have inside each TypeScript file. So make API request equals a function that calls uses React query or whatever, and you want to, let's say you have a query.fetch. This is not real code, obviously. So query.fetch, and your TypeScript file already contains, sorry, your Open API spec already contains an API endpoint. URL is /get user. Inside our TypeScript file, we want to say this. Do this query.fetch get user, wait for the response, do whatever you want with the response. So this is obviously a very specific use case that a library would not solve. And this is where a Mustache file would shine. And all I need to do with the Mustache file would simply be define all of this inside the Mustache file and replace everything with a variable. So I will have a section which would be something like properties. 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 Oh, a section. So, and then close properties. And then inside here, we would just say name type. That's it. If I have this and then all of this as well, and put something like URL here. Now, if I have this Mustache file, all I need to do is pass this object into this Mustache file. Pass this object, properties. Properties will be an array of objects, which will be name, type, string, Yep. Age. Sorry. Name, age, type, int. If I pass this into this mustache file, it will generate the TypeScript file that I started with. We will see the package.json example during this call. Does that clarify the use case? Done.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right. We were in the CSV array to CSV thingy. If I pass in the headers, this is basically the same thing as this, except that it has headers and it's going to render, the headers, and we will have this. Notice that this section is exactly the same as this, except that now we have the headers as well. So the point here is that if you pass a variable, it's going to be rendered. If you don't pass it, it's simply not going to be rendered. With objects. Now, this is where it gets a bit more complex and more useful. So in this example, I already showed this. Let's look at our mustache file again. I have a property named objects data. We're expecting each item in the array of objects data. I'm expecting object data to be an array, but it can be anything. Again, if what you are passing does not exist, it simply will not be rendered. If it's a single item, it will be rendered once. If it's an array, it will be rendered the number of times of the number of items in the array. So I create a new section with hashtag dots, right? Now, everything inside here, all the variable names, notice that previously we've just been using dots. Here we are using variable names. Everything inside here has to be, I mean, not necessarily, but it's assumed that everything inside here is in the context of object data. If it doesn't exist in the context of object data, then it looks outside. It looks outside the object and tries to find something that matches. But it assumes that it's in the context of object data. So if I look at this, object data is a list, right? And every item inside it will be rendered. So we have first name, last name, gender, date of birth. But sorry. First name, last name, gender, date of birth. But if you look at this, we don't have first name or last name. We only have gender. And then we have this weird thing with date of birth. So what does this do? First, let's first understand that gender is going to be rendered as, object data dot gender. So that part is fine. Object data dot gender. So we're going to have female. I said everything is assumed to be in the context of object data. So name should be in the context of object data. But unfortunately, there's no name here. But if we look outside object data, we find name. It tries to render that name. It finds a function. If it's a function, then it evaluates that function and renders what is, the output of that function. So this function is returning this dot first name, this dot last name. If you are looking at this as a JavaScript object, there is no this dot first name because this is supposed to, because this is a block scopes function, this is supposed to be inside with objects. So there's no first name inside with objects. There's no last name inside this object. So what is this then? This is the context of object data. So everything is in the context of object data, and this is the context of object data as well. So this dot first name will be Tom. This dot last name will be Adams. So it renders, Tom Adams. because we passed a function in here. Get age is another function, but the difference is that get age is a function that returns another function. And this doesn't have to be this, it can be an arrow function. So it can be an arrow function. So this is a function that returns another function. Now, because this returns an inner function, Mustache, if it is a simple function, Mustache will evaluate that function. If it is a function that returns a function, Mustache does evaluate the outer function. And then for the inner function, Mustache can pass in the text and the render. The text is whatever you pass inside the get age section. So in this case, we are passing the date of birth inside the get age function. So that's the text, DOB. So all I'm simply doing here is render that text to get the value or the string that will be rendered ideally by Mustache. So this is the string that would have been rendered by Mustache, which is 1975. So get that string, calculate the age based on that string, and return that as a string. That's it. Of course, like all JavaScript functions, if you want, Mustache is going to pass it, but if you want, don't receive it. If you want to do anything else, don't receive it and return whatever it is that you want. So that this allows us to do a bit more complex stuff. And if you want to play around with this, you can check out the Mustache documentation or check in the slides or check the GitHub repository for this. So if I uncomment this and I run it, I have, Tom Adams, male 25. So name, which we've seen, that is a function that returns first name and last name. So first name and last name. Gender, which is we've seen is a property, male or female. And age, which we've seen, get age, which we've seen is a function that returns another function. So if I come in here and I return hello, I run this, I'm expecting hello here. So yep. If I just say render text, because render is a function and text is whatever is inside of here, whatever is inside here. So if I run this, then I get 1975, which is the date of birth that is passed inside there. So in summary, so far we've seen how to render a basic variable like this, how to render sections, how to create a section which will, I'm using a different keyboard down to my laptop's traditional keyboard layout. So this is a section, it will render the content inside it multiple times, depending on the variable. So if the variable is false or undefined, it will not render at all. If the variable is a list, it will render n times. If it's a list, the variable is a list, 1, 2, 3, it will render it, it will render the content of this however many times the number of items in the list. And we've also seen that you can pass a function and the function will simply be called. And you can pass a function that returns a function, in which case the inner function will be called with a render and a text. Cool. Now we're going to put it all together and create our own version of npm init. I'm going to stop sharing so I can share my terminal to show you what that should look like. But if anyone has any question, you can ask now.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, I'm listening.
Tweeton asked about how Mustache templates can be used for, the use case, and you explained things about generating CSV. You talked about generating classes from using the Mustache template, but I have a particular use case in mind, and I don't know how
Okay.
possible. I just want to ask, maybe we've done something like that before. So more like generating an email template that will have images, maybe like an image that's, the same way, for example, Spotify Wrapped, but via mail.
Right. Yeah.
You're going to be getting a mail with your listening, 99,000 minutes listened to this and tracks. So what in that case is Mustache able to do that kind of thing, and what packages are there for JavaScript? If you can shed light on that.
So what frameworks do you usually write on your backend?
On the backend, they use Node.js Express.
Okay, cool. So this is probably not very relevant then, but I just remembered this because you mentioned email templates, and in Laravel you use Blade to define all of your views. My point is, everything you can use to render your views, you can also use to render email templates. Email templates are just HTML, right? So you can use any templating syntax to do this. So this is Blade, this is Laravel Blade, and I'm pretty sure, in fact, why didn't I just Google that? Mustache email templates. Yep. Let me see. Use string mail. I think this is an article that does that. You can probably check it out. This is Java. This is Java, so it's probably not very helpful, but
I could look for a JavaScript variant.
Yeah. So my point is, you can use it to generate any text, really. Any text that involves having a format and just inserting variables inside that format, you can use it for. So this is a Blade example. This is how Laravel Blade looks. And if you should see, yes. So this is, look at this, for example. This is how, this is what Mustache syntax. Sorry?
Okay. You're showing your terminal. I'm not seeing the screen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Google Meet should fix this.
You mentioned something about text. In this case, it's going to still have styles a bit. So
yeah, that's why.
Yes. Fine. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a Blade. This is a Laravel Blade file. Just think of it as Mustache, but a different. You have, just like you have React and you have Vue, or you have JavaScript and you have PHP. Blade is just another templating syntax, and the variables are also defined just like Mustache variables are defined. So if you check here, you see how variables are defined, but it has helper functions, unlike Mustache it doesn't. So the variables are defined like this in Blade views. So my point is, if you were to define this in Mustache, you will do the exact same thing. So let's say you have an HTML for your email. Let's say you have an HTML for your email, and your HTML looks something like HTML close HTML. Your email is just HTML, and it has some CSS, style, SRC. I don't know how styles look. I've not written HTML not written HTML for such a very long time, so I'm not sure how styles look. But I think it's probably something like link type equals rel equals style sheet, something like that. So this is if you have external styles or style close style. So basically, just paste the entire content of your HTML for your email, paste everything, and then go in and replace some of the content. So let's say our email was supposed to send close body. Our email was supposed to send hello, whoever you are. This is your final warning, and you want final warning to be bold. So bold. You want it to have red color. Style equals color red, whatever. It's just HTML. Sorry, yeah, your email is just HTML. You want to have an image there, put an image there. If you want the image to be dynamic, then img src equals to img source. And in your Node.js controller, if you're using Mongoose or I don't know what frameworks people use in Node.js this day, whatever your controller is that is sending the email, we just need to pass the following variables, something like name, Victor, img source /src /user profile picture.png. You will just need to pass these variables, and that's it. So you can use it to render any text, anything that is text-based. You can use Mustache templates to render, and that's exactly what it's for.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think I understand now. Thank you very much.
If does anyone have any other questions before I stop sharing and show you what npm init looks like? Okay, let me share my terminal to see what so if let's say I come in here and I want to create a new project. Let's then for shit. And I do npm init. You've probably seen this before, but I just want to show you what it looks like. So that's for a package name. I say yes, it's temp4. The version, I say yes, is 1.0.0. The description, my description, entry point, index.js, test command, don't put any test command, git repository, git.com/ /temp4 keywords, key 1, key 2. Auto. I'm filling everything in so that I can have the maximum possible context. So this is what it creates. It creates this package.json, contents. I'm just going to copy everything because this is the maximum package.json file that npm init creates, and we want to create our own version. So all I need to do is let me delete this, yes, create a new file, call it package.mustache, and put the contents there. And all I need to do is just
terminal.
Sorry, this is really frustrating. Okay, okay. So all I just did is, paste the entire content of the package.json file and do some tweaking. Now we will start with the basics that we've learned. Which is like it's the name. So name, which is package name. Description will be description. Did I put this in quotes when I yeah, I put them in quotes. Okay. Description will be what? Description. Sorry. Description. Main will be main. We will come back to that. We will show I know I said there's no logic, but we have something similar to if else. And we will come back to all of that. Now, remember, if any variable is not provided, then that section will not be rendered at all. If any variable is not provided, that section will not be rendered at all. So let's say, for example, keywords. If there is no keyword provided, we don't want to show the keyword section at all. If there is no keywords provided, what we will do is this: keywords.length. Because we're assuming keywords is an array, you pass an array from our controller. Hash is how we denote the section. So hash, and close keywords.length section. Close this section, open the section this way, close the section this way. And I have my keywords. Don't worry about putting in the content yet. We could. So now, keywords.length. This is a JavaScript thing. And we said Mustache is language agnostic, etc, etc. I'm supposed to be able to pick a Mustache template and use it in any implementation, if it's a Java implementation or whatever. But this is assuming that you're providing a .length property on keywords, and JavaScript already does that for us, and this Mustache template will work. If I want to use this Mustache template in an environment like Java, for example, that doesn't have a .length property, then I will need to provide a .length property or modify the Mustache template. So my point is, you can access object properties with dots, just like you can do in JavaScript. And then each one of the keywords, we want to show each one of the keywords this way. So hashtag keywords, because remember, hashtag is used to render a section. Keywords. So I'm not going to get to all of this. I'm going to skip to the end because I really need to get to something. So I'm running over time. But yeah, we've seen this before. Dot is going to render the current item. So keyword section, dot, and the comma, to put the comma. So we can do this. And in our index.js, we will remove all of these, just put some basic logic. Okay. I'm going to copy a lot of stuff, and I will try to explain what each one of them does, but you can go to the GitHub repository. So I created a prompt here. The prompt using a Node.js package called prompt that receives prompt from the user. I'm going to comment out all the irrelevant ones, except for keywords. Name, description, and keywords. So name, description, and keywords. So you don't need to worry about the rest. Generate outputs from CSV is a function that generates outputs from CSV. So let me bring that function in here. Let me just put that function here instead of doing the old module thingy. So remove all of this. Prompt equals require prompt, and do this correct. I think so. So yeah, so the generate output function Mustache.render, just as we've seen. Generate output from CSV. It does the exact same thing as the previous one. It creates an output file. That's all it does. Fs does read file, so I probably need fs as well. Now I'm feeling bad that I deleted the entire code. I shouldn't have. Let me just copy it again. And, 1, 2, 3. Okay. I think require prompt First equals require, first promises, resolve equals require, and I think it should be correct. So we defined our template, we pasted everything that we expect. We put name, description, keywords. If if keywords.length, that's basically what it is saying. Remember, hash is a section, and if that section does not exist or it is falsy, then it will not be rendered. So let's see if we can run this. Let's see if this works. Cool. Package name. It asks me for package name. I will say the package name is hello. Description. My fancy package. Keywords, comma separated keywords. Full promise. What's the problem there? From promise, no such directory package. Oh, sorry. My bad. Package.mustache. We go again. Hello. Fancy package. Full. And there we go. It generates the package.json file. It fills everything in. I mean, the things we asked it to fill in anyway. Name, description, and keywords, comma separated keywords. So we have the comma separated keywords. What if I had not provided a keyword? Sorry. Run. What is going on? Did I edit it wrong? Oh no, shit. You know what happened? I asked it to generate a package.json file and it has now overwritten. Oh no. Okay. I will switch to my local environment because I have now fucked up the package.json that this entire environment needs to run. So I will switch to my local environment. Sorry about that. Because I asked it to write to file and it has written to the package.json file. So cool. Okay. This is much nicer anyway. I did not want to share this because it contains the final code and it might be worrisome. How did you get here? Yeah. So let's go to my mouse just died. You know what? So this is the mustache file. This is the final mustache file, which I don't want you to worry too much about just yet. Just the keywords.length is what the focus is on here. So we're going to run this index.js file. So node src package. So yep. So this asks for a package name, and I enter hello, package version, yeah, description, fancy package, entry file, keywords. I'm not entering any keywords, which is what I wanted to focus on here. I'm not entering any keywords, and it generates this. It generates this. So actually, it generates a keyword section, which is empty, which I think might be my part. So let me see. This says keywords.split this. I should be checking if there is a keyword. So what I will do is come in here and provide, again, like I said, your mustache file. Well, technically, if you write the wrong thing inside your mustache file, it will generate the wrong thing. But in this case, the bug is in my actual controller, which is this JS file, and not in the mustache file. So default undefined here means that if the user does not enter anything, then it should be undefined and not an empty string. So here I will, check if keywords exist, first of all. If it doesn't exist, I will pass undefined. And if I do this, if I run this again, package name, hello, version, description, entry file, keywords, whatever, I still have a keyword. Ah, come on. I'm going to add code undefined here. First of all, I'm going to add code undefined here just to see if the keywords.length thing is working. And I am going to stop asking for version and main. So page name, sorry. Hello, description, hello world. Keywords is empty. Right. So it does not generate a keyword, which confirms my suspicion that the problem is in our index.js file and not in the package.mustache file. So the points we're illustrating here is you can access object properties like this. And we've already seen that if a variable does not exist, then that section will simply, not be rendered at all. And if you pass keywords, we've also seen that it passes the keywords as well. Now, there's one other thing, there's one final thing that I want to show, which is this nice little thing here, which is the defaults. So if you notice in my output, even though I did not specify a main, it gives me index.js. I did not specify a version, it puts in the right version. So that's what we're doing here. And technically, you could do this with JavaScript, but we want to write as little code as possible. So we're doing it in our Mustache file, and we are simply saying we, create a section with version, and you already know that a section will be rendered 0 or more times. If it does not exist, it will not be rendered at all. So if it does not exist, it will not be rendered at all. This is the section. This is the end of the section. And dot simply means current item. So if version is a string, then it will just put a string, the string, which is the version. But there's another thing here, which is, the caret sign. Is it caret or caret? The caret sign, which is like the inverse of version. So this will be rendered if version does not exist. So if version exists, it renders version. If version does not exist, it does not render version. But we are also explicitly defining here, if version does not exist, then come and put this 1.0.0. So we do the same thing here in main. If main does not exist, put index.js. If test does not exist, echo error, no test specified. Repository, we know that if I say hash, I create a section, and if the section does not exist, it's not going to be rendered at all. So if repository exists, it will render this whole thing. If repository does not exist, then good luck. So if repository exists, then we are simply putting it plus the git URL, the git URL / issues, the git URL / readme, or readme, whatever. And that's it. If license does not exist, put ISC. So if I come and run the whole thing again, it's asked me for a package name. I actually told it to stop asking me for some things. So let me just do that. And you can take a look at the GitHub to see the code, to see the final code, and it really mimics what npm init does. So let me Control-C this and start it again. 5. Package name, new package, prompt version, no description, fancy new package, entry file, index.js, yes, keywords, hello world, and there we go. That's it. It generates the package.json file with all of the contents that we would normally expect. If I had put the GitHub repository, it would have given me the GitHub repository as well. Actually, I did not ask for it here, so if I decide to ask for it, description, GitHub repository, and defaults to undefined as well. And I just run that package, blah blah. Oh, I did not put the GitHub repository again, which kind of defeats the entire point. Package version GitHub repository hub.com/4/pro, and there we go. There you go. It actually does not, yeah, because I did not pass in the repository. Yeah, the repository. So one last try. Package version. Oh, and it generates the full package.json that would have been generated if we ran npm init. So who knows? npm init is probably using something similar under the hood, or they might just be generating it with strings. Who knows? But most likely they are using the templating syntax like Mustache. So that's it. Does anyone have any questions? That's how Mustache works, and I hope you guys play around with this a bit more. So is this being practically used? It is being used. Handlebars is what I was trying to remember earlier. Handlebars is used in many front-end frameworks. Cake PHP uses Mustache as well for its views. I mentioned that Laravel uses Blade. Of course, React uses JSX. Handlebars is an extension of Mustache. And OpenAPI Generator is a tool that allows you to convert OpenAPI specs to TypeScript or classes or whatever, in your language, whatever language it is that you're using. So you can check that out if you're ever interested in automatically converting your OpenAPI specs to front-end requests. And that's it. You have the GitHub repository for the slides. Yeah. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out or drop your questions now.
No questions like this.
Okay, cool. There's no questions. This has been fun preparing the slides. And thank you for listening.
All right, thank you very much, Temitope. I'll be very honest. This is one of the, if not, this is actually the most detailed meetings I've ever attended, and to be honest, I really loved every single part. I don't think I've ever had something that had this much use case personally for me, and I think I'll be making some mustache in the future. Definitely. Thank you very much, Temitope, and everyone who asked questions. Tuadon and I think Victor. Thank you very much for the questions. Once again, Temitope, thank you. And yes, just a bit of notification out there. We're actually working on something, say a web page where you can get information on future meetings without me having to send messages to you guys. So you can get that very soon. So yeah, thanks everyone for showing up. I'm sure we'll have something like this again next week. I'm not certain of next week. I mean, yeah, but moving forward, we'll see how things will go. Thank you very much for everyone who showed up. To Adon, my co-host that helped me add everyone to the meeting. All right, everyone, have a nice night and a great week ahead. Bye.